So, today the Mac Mini received a long overdue update. Let's go over the pricing and ideal configurations for this new 2018 Mac Mini. So for the past 7 years, the Mac Mini has looked exactly like this. That is, until today. And even then, it still kind of pretty much looks like this. So the new Mac Mini is a largely similar design. It's going to be the exact same footprint, the exact same dimensions as the outgoing Mac Mini, but we do get some more modern ports with Thunderbolt 3 added, and then it's also space gray, and then they removed the infrared sensor. But aside from that, it literally looks exactly like this. Though don't get me wrong, I think it looks really cool. The space gray is like, whew, sick. I think space gray everything at this point, honestly. So while the exterior of the new Mac Mini really isn't all that different, on the inside, we've got some very nice upgrades. So for one, Apple has finally addressed the complaint about the 2014 Mac Mini, which many saw as a step back from 2012 because it only had dual-core processors. Well, finally, we have quad-core processors, not only as standard, but as the base model. We can go up to 6 cores on this new Mac Mini, which is really great. I honestly was not expecting there to be a 6-core Mac Mini. I thought it was going to be dual cores and then you could option in a quad, but you know what? I'm happy about it. This new Mac Mini is definitely more pro-focused, and unfortunately that also means it's a little bit more pro-priced. So let's jump in on Apple's website. So as you can see, there are 2 models of Mac Mini that you can choose from before you start customizing. We can either pick from the 3.6 GHz quad core or the 3 GHz 6-core processor. Something that's important to note is that quad-core model is running an Intel Core i3. That's not ideal. I would have preferred to see a Core i5. The 6-core, on the other hand, is running a Core i5, and both models are running 2666 MHz DDR4 memory. So this is the same type of memory that you'll find in an iMac Pro, although granted not in the same amount. So the base model, which is $800, is going to come with 128 gigabytes of storage, and if you bump up to the 6-core model, that's going to jump up to 256 gigabytes of storage. Now keep in mind that this is PCIe-based SSD storage, so that means it's going to be soldered to the logic board. You know the drill, it's not getting upgraded. That's just kind of how Apple is going, as much as I hate it. What isn't soldered to the logic board, however, is the RAM, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later, but basically, because you can upgrade the RAM with normal consumer laptop DDR4 RAM, don't ever pay for Apple to upgrade the RAM. They're way too expensive. We'll get more into that in a little bit. Alright, so for now, let's jump into the customization options that we have available to us on these computers. Now, for starters, it doesn't really matter which one you pick because they both have the same customization options available. So I'm going to jump in here with the base $800 model with the Core i3, and regardless of which you pick, you're going to get the option to add $300 to your price with a 6-core Core i7, that's 3.2 gigahertz. That's a pretty decent processor. That is certainly something that I would recommend doing. Moving down to memory, we can go all the way up to 64 gigabytes for a whopping $1,400, which is going to double the price of what we have right now. Moving on down to storage, we can put a 2 terabyte SSD, which is going to add another $1,600 to the price tag. Now, if this wasn't already expensive enough, we have an option that you may not have seen before because most recent Macs don't really have Ethernet, to be honest, but we now have the option to add 10 gigabit Ethernet. That's another $100, bringing our total price for the most expensive Mac Mini up to $4,200. Can you imagine spending $4,200 on something this big that doesn't have a screen, or a keyboard, or a mouse? Alright, Apple. Anyway, for a lot of people, I think that 10 gigabit Ethernet isn't going to make a whole lot of difference. I mean, for me, it definitely wouldn't because my internet is terrible. I think I maybe get 30 megabit Ethernet on a good day, so I would not even have a use for 10 gigabit Ethernet. But for a lot of pro users, that is definitely something that they will be happy to have. So let's take a bit of a second here, and we're going to try and bring this Mac Mini back down to reality. Let's build something that's a little bit more achievable and, well, let's say, a little bit under $4,200. So we're going to jump in, and first of all, I'm going to take my SSD storage way back down to 512. because this guy has Thunderbolt 3, so honestly, your best bet is going to be Thunderbolt storage. So 512 is probably all that I would put in this thing as far as internal storage. You can see we're already down to $3,000. I'm also going to peel off the 10 gigabit Ethernet because I really don't have a use for it. Some people are probably going to keep that on there, but for the purposes of this, we're going to take it off. I'm also going to bring the RAM all the way back down to 8 gigabytes because it just doesn't make sense to pay Apple's fees for upgrading the RAM, especially if you go between 16 and 32 gigabytes. So for example here, Apple charges $200, whereas right here on Amazon I have some Corsair Vengeance performance memory, which is $145. That's going to save you $55 over what Apple charges. Or if we jump over to 32 gigabytes here, it's only going to cost us $289, which is a whopping $311 less than what Apple charges for this same amount of RAM. So if you do plan on upgrading the RAM in your 2018 Mac Mini, do not pay Apple to do it for you. You're gonna save a ton of money doing it yourself. So I have those two listings from Amazon linked down below. Please consider using those if you do want to, because I get a kickback from an Amazon affiliate link, so make sure to check down below if you plan on upgrading your RAM in the Mac Mini. Alright, so moving back over here, you can see we've brought our price down to a much more reasonable $1,500, which is honestly not bad considering that we're getting a 6-core i7 and a 0.5 terabyte SSD. That's pretty good. This price is going to go up a little bit though once you add in that RAM, probably by another $150 to $300, but even so, you're still staying under $2,000 and you're still getting a 6-core i7, which you cannot do in any other Mac. So the only other thing that I would really consider adding to this Mac Mini is something like this Thunderbolt 3 USB-C 4 terabyte or 6, 8, 10 terabyte external hard drive. This can really boost your storage and it gives you the benefit of having nice Thunderbolt 3 connectivity. It's certainly an alternative to putting a ton of money into SSDs for internal storage. And of course that is going to be linked down below as well. So with this new Mac Mini, Apple is certainly focusing on pro users, so I assembled a shopping cart on apple.com of a pretty good essentials list of pro-oriented accessories to accompany your Mac Mini and create a really nice pro editing workstation. So to jump right in, I have the Mac Mini with the 6-core i7, 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte SSD storage, and 10 gigabit Ethernet. That comes in at $2,600, though it could be less if you choose to do the RAM yourself. Now onto that, I've added the Magic Keyboard and Magic Trackpad, and to display, I've added the LG Ultrafine 4K display. So to help run that 4K display, and because the Mac Mini only has integrated graphics, I added the Blackmagic eGPU. So this total bag comes to $4,300, which is not inexpensive to say the least. However, consider that that's only $100 more than if you completely spec'd out just the Mac Mini. And the only difference between this Mac Mini and the fully spec'd one is that this has 32 instead of 64 gigabytes of RAM and a terabyte instead of 2 terabyte SSD. And then we throw in a keyboard, mouse, display, and GPU, and it's only $100 extra. So, not awful, but again, pretty pricey. If you are gonna spend that amount of money, honestly, I would get a refurbished iMac Pro. It's gonna cost, I believe, the exact same amount of money. Yeah, so as predicted, if you were to just buy a refurbished iMac Pro, that's gonna come in at $4,250. So probably a better idea than if you were to tack on all of those accessories to the Mac Mini, but you at least could do that if you wanted to. So that'll do it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was helpful in terms of learning a bit more about how this new Mac Mini works, and hopefully it helped you make up your mind as far as what upgrades you want to do to your Mac Mini. So let me know down below if you're planning on ordering a Mac Mini, what configuration are you going to get? Also let me know if you have any questions or comments, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please consider following me on Twitter at Luke Miani, and I will see you guys in the next video.